Welcome to Short Movie Channel. The movie begins with a scene of Jessica, whose husband has recently passed away. She is packing up all her belongings into her car to move out. Once she's done, she opens a navigation app on her phone, which shows that the drive will take 4 days outside the city to reach her destination, where she plans to start a new life. Her journey outside the city goes smoothly, and she's actually enjoying the drive for a while. But eventually she finds herself on a highway surrounded by forests. Suddenly she notices a black car in front of her, moving strangely. The black car is driving extremely slowly, and every time Jessica tries to pass it, it speeds up again. Not wanting to waste any more time, she decides to accelerate, change lanes, and get ahead of it. But as soon as she does, the black car moves right beside her, matching her speed to block her from getting back into her lane. To make things worse, a massive truck appears speeding toward her. The black car still refuses to slow down. Luckily, she manages to swerve just in time before the truck crashes into her. But only seconds later, the black car swerves too and gets right beside her again, honking loudly. Finally, at an intersection, their paths split, and Jessica pulls over to catch her breath after all the intense adrenaline she just experienced. Later that night, she stops at a gas station to fill up her tank while talking to her father on the phone. From their conversation, it's clear that she has conflicts with her mother, despite her father's attempts to convince her to make peace. But in the middle of the call, she suddenly spots the same black car parked at the gas station before it speeds off again. Feeling uneasy, Jessica decides to take a break from driving and spend the night at a small motel in town. While there, she receives a call from her mother but chooses not to answer. Before going to sleep, she looks through old photos of her late husband, reminiscing about their happy times together. Overcome with emotions, she breaks down crying for a while before finally forcing herself to sleep. The next morning, as she's getting ready to leave, a strange-looking man approaches her car and introduces himself. Jessica is taken aback when he tells her that he owns the black car and apologizes, explaining that he wasn't paying attention the previous night because he was on his phone while driving. He continues talking to her, asking questions like where she's from, where she's headed, and whether she lives nearby. Feeling uncomfortable, Jessica quickly tells him she's in a hurry and leaves. She finally makes it out of town and back onto the highway through the forest. But after a short while, she sees the black car again. This time, it's parked in the middle of the road, with the same strange man standing beside it, acting lost. Jessica quickly locks her car doors and slightly rolls down her window to see what he wants. The man tells her that his car engine broke down and asks if she can give him a ride to the nearest gas station. Feeling even more uneasy, Jessica suggests that she could go to the gas station herself and send a mechanic to help him. But he refuses and insists that she should step out and assist him directly. That's when she starts to panic. Without hesitation, she slams her foot on the gas and speeds away. She doesn't stop again until much later that night, at another gas station. While there, she finally answers a call from her mother, who is furious and upset that Jessica left town without telling the family. But Jessica has already made up her mind. She wants to move on from her husband's death. Just then, wait a second. That cursed black car parks in the same lot again. Jessica's heart pounds as she rushes back to her car. At this point, it's clear that the black car has been following her. As she expects, the man approaches her window, but she quickly drives off before he can say anything. However, just as she's leaving the parking lot, a large white truck suddenly blocks her path, forcing her to stop. This gives the strange man enough time to walk up to her and tell her that he was just using the restroom at the gas station and that she's overreacting. Jessica ignores him, waiting for the white truck to move out of her way. As soon as it does, she floors the gas pedal, speeding off as fast as she can. But as she looks in her rearview mirror, she sees the black car trailing behind her again. At this point, she decides to call the police, reporting that someone has been following her for a while. But she grows increasingly frustrated when the officer keeps asking for her exact location, which she struggles to determine. Her anxiety peaks when the black car suddenly speeds up toward her. But then, Unexpectedly, it passes her and vanishes into the darkness. That's when she realizes this might not be the same black car as before. She quickly informs the officer that she may have made a false report. She finally starts to calm down, but just as she takes a deep breath, bam! She loses control of her car and is forced to pull over. Stepping out to inspect the damage, she finds that one of her tires has burst. And then, the black car starts creeping toward her. Slowly. Jessica freezes, unsure whether to run or face whatever is coming. Acting fast, she unhitches her trailer and jumps into the car. But unfortunately, she doesn't start it in time. This time, the strange man drops his act. He stops pretending to be a nice guy and smashes her car window. Jessica struggles, trying to fight back, but he's too strong. Within seconds, he injects her with a sedative. The next day, when she wakes up, she finds herself inside a strange room with a window sealed by iron bars. Outside the room, there's barbed wire surrounding the area. Jessica tries to peek through the keyhole, but she can't see anything that might help her. Then, she starts hearing footsteps outside the room, and of course, they belong to no one but the strange man. He looks at her calmly and tells her to keep her voice down. He doesn't check on her again until nighttime, when he shines his flashlight into the completely dark room and moves closer to her with a disgusting smile on his face. The next day, she tries to beg him for mercy, offering him money in exchange for letting her go. But he remains completely unaffected by her words. He coldly tells her that she's not the first person to plead with him. Then, without shame, he admits that he's a serial killer. Since he's a twisted and sick individual, he demands that she take off her clothes. Jessica tries to distract him, saying, "I just need to use the bathroom." The moment she rushes toward the door, he hits her, knocking her to the ground. He then drags her to the middle of the room, kneels down, and strokes her face with his hand. After that, he takes her iPad and plays a video of her happy memories with her husband. He notices the wedding ring she's wearing on a necklace and asks if her husband divorced her. Although she doesn't want to talk, she replies, telling him her husband committed suicide. But her answer doesn't satisfy him. He forces her to confess that her husband shot himself, and that she found his body the next morning. The next day, as soon as she wakes up, she desperately tries to open the door, but it won't budge. When she tries to look through the keyhole again, she sees that the key is still in the lock on the other side. She searches the room until she finds a nail stuck in the wall. She pulls it out with all her strength, then lays her jacket flat on the floor, slides it under the door, and uses the nail to push the key out of the lock. When the key falls, she pulls it inside with her jacket, unlocks the door, and escapes. But right then, she sees the serial killer returning from the supermarket. This forces her to hide inside a closet as he enters the room. She watches him through the keyhole, terrified, trying not to make a sound. He answers a phone call, and from the conversation, it becomes clear that he's talking to his young daughter. He tells her to say hi to her mom and let her know that his work trip will take a little longer, but he'll be home in a few days. After ending the call, he goes downstairs to check on her in the basement. Seizing the opportunity, Jessica bolts out of the house and sprints into the forest as fast as she can. But soon enough, he realizes she has escaped and starts chasing after her. Jessica keeps running until she steps on a tree branch, which gets stuck in her leg, causing her to fall to the ground. She has no choice but to pull it out, no matter how painful it is. She screams in agony, which alerts the killer. But that doesn't stop her. She keeps running until she reaches a river. Even though she knows she might drown, she jumps into the water, and the current carries her to the other side of the forest. And since the movie isn't going to end just yet, Jessica miraculously doesn't drown. Because, well, the director decided so. The water pushes her to the opposite shore, and she continues running. She leans against a tree for support as she walks, but suddenly, she hears footsteps approaching. She hides and waits, then attacks the person near her, only to realize he's just an old hunter, who is shocked by the sudden attack. Jessica immediately apologizes and tells him that someone is trying to kill her. She asks to make a call from his phone, but it's completely broken from when she hit him. Feeling sorry for her, the hunter decides to help. He takes her to his truck, gives her his wife's old hunting boots, and they drive off together. He also hands her his lunch sandwich so she can eat. On the way, he tries to calm her down, but suddenly, they reach a fallen tree blocking the road. This terrifies Jessica again, and she desperately tries to move the tree out of the way, but it's way too heavy. At that moment, the serial killer arrives in his car. He approaches them and tells the hunter that Jessica is his mentally ill sister who escaped from home. The hunter looks confused, and for a moment, he starts to believe him. Thinking the situation is under control, the hunter lets the man take Jessica. The killer then tries to continue with his plan and kidnap her again. But the way he roughly handles Jessica makes the hunter suspicious. He quickly raises his rifle at the killer, forcing him to let her go. Jessica runs into the forest again, while the confused hunter asks the man for his phone, saying the police can confirm if Jessica is really his sister. Of course, things aren't that simple. The killer grabs the old hunter, beats him brutally, then takes his rifle and shoots him to finish him off completely. At this time, Jessica starts running deep into the forest, trying to escape from the killer, who is now also armed. The night falls, and Jessica finally gets a moment to rest by a large rock, hiding from the storm. But unfortunately, the killer is close by, searching for her with his flashlight. Thinking she's safe, she begins to move to leave, but she quickly realizes the killer is still standing there and shoots her in the leg. Jessica, still able to move, crawls away and hides under the trees while the killer continues looking for her. Trying to scare her, he tells her that the bullet wound in her leg gives her only 2 hours before she bleeds out. Then, to taunt her even more, he places his rifle on the ground and tells her she has 1 minute to try and take it. He keeps provoking her, even insulting her dead husband by calling him a coward to make her angry. The more time passes and Jessica stays hidden, the more frustrated he gets. He starts yelling, telling her that he'll catch her no matter what. Shockingly, Jessica doesn't even try to go for the rifle. Instead, she waits for the killer to pick it up and leave. Only then does she finally come out of hiding and continue walking. Eventually, exhausted, she reaches a tree and collapses beneath it. The next morning, she wakes up, still in the middle of the forest. Forcing herself to keep moving on rough terrain, she suddenly hears a car approaching. But unfortunately, it's not just any car, it's the killer's. He pulls a dead hunter's body out of the trunk and throws it into a pit he had already dug. While he's busy burying the hunter, Jessica sneaks toward his car, hoping to find something that can help her. Luckily, she finds his phone. But just as she picks it up, the killer appears behind her. He gets into the car and starts driving again. She notices a tire iron behind her seat and grabs it as a weapon. She quietly dials the police, but she can't speak clearly because she knows she must avoid making noise. It doesn't take long before the killer realizes his phone is missing. He starts searching for it, and when he doesn't find it, he pulls over. Jessica knows she's running out of time, so she attacks him, hitting him with the tire iron. The killer loses control of the car, swerving wildly while trying to stab her with his hunting knife. She manages to knock the knife out of his hand and, after multiple attempts, stabs him in the hand with it. This causes him to completely lose control of the car, and it flips over. Jessica crawls out of the wreck and, in the distance, spots a helicopter. Just as hope returns, she gathers her strength and walks toward a clearing, away from the trees. Back at the crashed car, we see that the killer is still alive. Jessica, who still has his phone, calls his wife, revealing that her husband isn't on a business trip like he claimed. He's actually a serial killer. As the killer gets closer to her, she turns on the speakerphone so he can hear that she has told his wife everything. Jessica keeps talking, giving her full name, and tells the wife that if she dies today, it will be because her husband murdered her. Furious, the killer immediately ends the call, clearly shaken. Now that both of them have nothing left to lose, they engage in a brutal fight. The killer swings his hunting knife at her, but Jessica defends herself with the tire iron, landing several strong blows. However, he finally manages to stab her deeply, nearly killing her. But she refuses to give up. She bites him on his wounded hand and fights back. Now it's her turn to finish him off. She stabs him hard in the stomach and watches as he loses all strength. She collapses next to him, exhausted, her eyes filled with rage as she watches him take his last breath. Before the movie ends, the helicopter spots Jessica, and she is finally rescued. And that's where today's movie ends. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share.